Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Wendy and this is Can She DIY It? It's a series where I take stuff that I find on the internet and see if I can make it myself. In today's video, I'm doing something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, which is to make cute, tiny little bags that you see on Instagram. You know, they're like just a little bit big enough to hold your cell phone. Like you may have seen in the title and thumbnail, I am not just going to show you one bag, I'm going to show you three, and in the end you're going to have an adorable little thing to show off in photos, take to the market, go to a party. Hopefully maybe this is even in time for prom and you can enjoy it for prom. Expect to see these on my own Instagram very soon, and let's get started. We're gonna start with things real casual. Let's call this a little market bag, and it's really no good for picking up anything more than 1 to 2 apples. However, it is ripe for compliments. To make this bag, you're gonna need an old market reusable bag. Something that is woven or has a mesh-like quality could work, and to match with it, you're gonna need a little bit of vinyl. This baby blue brought out the blue undertones. You really don't need much of either of these, but that's what you need. I started out by cutting the panels that I would need for this bag. I used a rotary cutter because I thought that would help me get nice straight lines, but I'm pretty sure you could do a great job with scissors as well. Here are the measurements of the panels that I cut out. We're gonna get ready to sew it together. I also cut out a narrow strip of the vinyl. This was 3 centimeters wide. These pieces all got sewn wrong sides together, and I started by attaching the front panel to the bottom and then added the back panel and then finished off with adding the 2 side panels. I'm throwing in this close-up to help you with navigating the corners. What I discovered works really well is you start from the top of the bag, you sew all the way down, but you stop when you're about 1 centimeter away from the corner. This makes it so the material is available to be folded and tucked out of the way so that every single side that you're trying to sew together is totally accessible. Once all the sides were sewn up, my next step was to attach this light blue trim that I had prepared. I started with my regular sewing foot and had a bit of struggle with the vinyl moving around, and so here you see the solution that I had temporarily made up, which was to sew the vinyl to the bag all the way around once on one side, then fold it over, put it back under the foot, and sew down the other stitch that closes it in the folded position surrounding the edge. This kind of style of binding cannot go around the corners, and so you do need 4 little strips to cover the entire top opening. So this is really sad, but this is the very first day I've ever opened the package on my walking foot. I literally didn't even know which foot was the walking foot, and I googled Brother Machine walking foot, found out this is the walking foot, and scratch everything I said before because this is what you need to do to sew vinyl. Let me show you how amazing it is. Okay, just now I was telling you to do 1 stitch to sew 1/2 on and then fold it over and do 1 more stitch. It will look okay on the top. However, you can just skip all of that if you use a walking foot. Sorry for yelling. We're gonna take this, fold it over, and with normal foot it would all get stuck and sticky and start getting dislodged. But like, please observe. All in one go! Thank you, YouTube commenters, for telling me to try this foot. Best! Now I'm going to show you all the different ways I struggled to figure out the handle situation. I thought that I could do different techniques like sew the binding into a tube and flip it inside out, but then because it's vinyl, if it's too small it doesn't flip, and there was a lot of strain. And when you strain vinyl, it just starts to tear at the part that you're straining it. And in the end, we're just going to scratch all of that, and I'm going to go back to the handle that is originally on the bag and just use what nature's given me. I cut 2 pieces that were 35 centimeters long each. There are a lot of different ways that you can attach the handle to the bag, but in honor of the original bag that I was trying to mimic, I found some little metal grommets that I had hiding around in my home, and using a hole puncher, I put a hole in both ends of the handle, then put holes into the bag, lined it all up, put the grommet through, and I think actually the little touch of silver hardware ended up working out. So here is your finished little market bag. Next up is a fuzzy little bag. I saw this shrimps bag, which I thought had such beautiful texture, as well as this stod bag, which I thought had a really nice rope detail going on. So I'm going to try to combine those things into one bag for you. I found this faux fur at my fabric store and I loved it so much. And I got the minimum cut that the fabric store allowed, which was 9 inches at my store. You really don't need much, so just try to get the least that you can. I also picked up this satin cord, which is in a matching shade. Any cord that has a thickness that you like as a handle should be good. Like you've seen in all the videos where I've worked with faux fur in the past, you want to cut from the back, going through as little as possible of the fur. Here I'm doing it with scissors, but later I did switch to an X-Acto knife. I started out wanting a rectangular bag like the shrimps inspiration, so I did cut out all the pieces for that, but the shape is very flexible when it comes to faux fur. Here are the pieces I cut out with the measurements. I sewed this all together, right sides together this time instead of wrong sides together like we did with the market bag. And again, I used the same trick of not sewing all the way into the corner. This is optional, but probably a nice thing to do. I don't always do lining, but because this bag was shaping up to be a bit fancier of a bag, I thought it would be nice for it to have a soft, cute matching interior. To sew the lining to the fur, I sewed it right sides together all the way around the upper lip, but I did leave a small gap which would allow me to flip the entire thing so that I could stuff the lining to the inside of the bag. That last little opening does have to be sewn shut by hand, so just go back and forth with a little needle, making sure you actually pick up the backing of the faux fur instead of just the fur, because you're really not holding on to much if you're just sewing it to the fur. When you're cutting this type of cord, make sure you wrap it with a piece of strong tape. That will prevent it from creating a whole mess of fraying. Cut right down the middle of the tape, and that way both ends that I have cut are taped. One of these cords, I brought it all the way back around to form a loop. This is going to become the handle of the bag. Reaching about 2 centimeters down into the sides of the bag, I cut a little slit through the lining and a matching slit through the faux fur, and then I sewed that together by hand just to prevent it from fraying. This is a stitch that I use all the time whenever I'm finishing off an edge. You go in and out, but every single time you make sure you loop the thread around the needle, and that helps to create this nice finish. Stick the looped cord through those 2 little holes and then wrap and tie a cord all the way around the bag, and now you have an adorable fuzzy faux fur friend. And the fanciest bag for last. This one I got inspiration from shrimps as well as Vanina. There's a lot of this whole beaded bag thing going on, and I'm going to see if I can bead one of these beauties myself. Very obviously, we're going to start with some pearls. This is all the pearls that I'd purchased. In the end, I used all of these loops except for one. It was about 150 beads? Something like that. Some other supplies you'll need include gold hoops or any kind of hardware that you think looks really great on the arm. And I also picked up these cute little gold beads. These are going to fit in between the pearls, so just make sure you're happy with the color combo. With the gold beads, I got a lot. Next up, you're going to want to prepare your workstation. Be prepared that this may be a place that you cannot do anything else on for the next couple of days, so don't use like the kitchen counter or your dining table. Using nylon thread or fishing line, any of that kind of strong string, I cut pieces that were 1.5 meters long and started stringing the pearls onto them. Over the course of doing this, I discovered a couple of tricks that really help. One is using tape to hold the beads in place. Also makes things way less stressful when you accidentally drop a bead. The other thing that was really helpful are these little clothespins that you see here. Any little clip will do, but these clothespins helped me to clamp onto the string so that it wouldn't run around on me and I could clearly see where the string ends were and collectively move them out of the way. Okay, here is a little bit more progress. Let me explain what is going on here. I laid down enough tape so that I could create an alternating grid of pearls, and I'm going to put up this little graphic here so you can see what I'm trying to do with the pearls and the little gold beads. Every row of the pearls needs to alternate with the holes running horizontally in one row, vertically in the next row, and horizontally in the next row, and so on. The other rule you have to follow is that the bottom and top row of pearls must both be horizontal and the 2 side pearls must both be vertical. So this is me following that guidance. I'm organizing all my pearls so that every other row the holes run vertically or the holes run horizontally. And then I took the nylon thread and put it through a pearl, picked up a gold bead, through the next pearl, picked up a gold bead, and through the next pearl, and just keep snaking my way all the way from the bottom to the top. Every thread should be folded in half starting from the bottom, and so it's basically the two sides of the thread snaking back and forth all the way up, and then they meet again at the top. When I was finally done stringing up this entire thing, I started to remove the tape and then shuffle the beads so that I could tighten all of the little gaps that were there. The whole thing is strung together loosely so you have easy access, but in the end you do want to make sure it's all nice and tight, and at the very top I take the two neighboring strings and I tied them together, make a knot, lock that whole thing up. Alright, I'm about to seal the sides of this bag, but I was way too effective at guessing how many gold beads I needed, and by way too effective I mean wrong. So if you want, you could seal it with the exact same pattern as I have been doing here, but I'm gonna have to make up something else. Okay, to seal the sides, I decided to just stick with using the big pearls, but essentially I took more nylon thread and I wove the two sides together, adding a pearl in between as a bridge every so often. I got my string to go through one gold bead, one pearl, one more gold bead, and then through a pearl to switch to the other side. And then they would both do that again. Gold bead, pearl, gold bead, switch through a pearl. At the very top, again, I shuffled all of the beads to be as tight as possible, secured it all with a knot, and then celebrated with great relief that this is done. No more beading. Also, really polished off those gold beads. Little math estimation for you. All that's missing is to add some handles. I used the same nylon thread to secure these two loops to the top. Just use a ton of knots. Every single knot is another piece of insurance. And if you wanted this to be a totally foolproof bag, you could insert a little clear pouch that would help to make sure nothing fell through the holes. But here is your finished pearl beauty. Ta-da! Here are the bags that we made. I've got this market bag for everyday tininess. When I showed my mom this one, she laughed out loud and then said, "Cute!" And then she said, "What is the point of this bag?" And then I said, "Precisely the reaction that you just gave me." And then also this guy, I think the one thing missing is I do need to go back to the fabric hardware store and pick up some little caps to cover these off, probably like little silver caps to make them all nice. But look, he's like your little furry friend, helping you break the ice at parties, make new pals. And then this one I think I will save for much more glam occasions because it is quite the statement. Oh, it makes a nice sound. You'll see pictures of me in this on my Instagram for sure, so that's @WithWendy. And if you make this, use the hashtag #MadeWithWendy on Instagram so I can find it. Until next time, bye bye!